Pregame.com.
Patriots at Broncos. New England 6.5 now, and 46. Line open 4.5. But the look ahead at the Hilton a week prior was already New England -6. The books opened it up 4.5, took money right away on the Patriots, now as high as 6.5. I project this line gets to 7 when the public speaks, because they will be on Tom Brady fading Tim Tebow once again.
Yeah,
what do you
it's
think?
tough. I'm telling you, man. We were talking a little bit before we started this, and I had mentioned that 2 weeks ago I lost going against Denver. I had the Minnesota Vikings, and there were 2 reasons, obviously, that Minnesota lost that game. One of those reasons was the secondary couldn't hold up, and I thought they would be able to against Tebow because he can be inaccurate for 3 quarters at a time. But the bottom line is I lost. Last week I came against Denver again, and we ended up pushing for most people with the Chicago Bears. But this week, I have to think you either got to go with the Denver Broncos with this line, or you stay away from the contest. And as I'm handicapping their games, every time you turn on the radio, you hear about the Tebow magic, and and that's all you hear about. But I'm telling you right now, it's obviously not just Tim Tebow. It's guys like Von Miller, who's getting to the quarterback left and right every single game. It's John Fox, who, as far as I'm concerned, is the coach of the year, even if this team loses their final 3 games and goes 8-8. Because how many times at the collegiate or NFL level have you seen a guy completely change what he does midstream to give his team the best chance to win because of its current personnel?
And then go off and win 7 of 8 games.
Exactly. And this guy, if he would have stuck to what he was doing with Kyle Orton or kept Kyle Orton on the field, this team probably wins 3 games this year.
Max.
But he's done a fantastic job. And the thing that Tebow brings is this incredible confidence. And I saw an article either earlier today or last night, well-written article, talking about how relentless he is on studying game film. Okay, maybe he's not the most accurate passer for the first 3.5 quarters of a game. Maybe he's never going to be a superstar quarterback from that perspective. But he studies and studies, and all these other players, because he's winning, are starting to believe. This team has ultimate confidence every time they step on the field.
And there's something special about that, because it's so rare in sports where you get a full team effort. And I mean, let's be honest here. If a quarterback alone could win the Super Bowl, New England would have had more rings already. They'd have already won a playoff game the last few years if it just came down to the quarterback position. And I think, if anything, we're seeing Tim Tebow constantly improve. But you touched on the most important part. You're not playing Tim Tebow. You're playing the Denver Broncos. And right now, the Denver Broncos are playing as well as anybody in the league. And I keep hearing about soft schedule. They're catching everybody at the right time. You can only play who is in front of you. And the fact that this team is not only winning, but they're coming from behind to win games tells a lot about their character. They're not going to quit. Because of that, the back door is always open. A lot of guys are thinking they're going to see this line move and think right away, oh, the sharp money's all over New England. I think nothing could be further from the truth. This is a simple case of getting out ahead of the public, who you already know is going to bet the New England Patriots. By laying 4.5 and 5, this line will get to 7. Not only do you create a middle for yourself, but I know from my experience that pretty much every betting syndicate out there also takes bets. What better thing to do as someone who takes action than to lay off a game that you know your clients are going to bet at a better number? By betting New England -4 and then having all your clients bet New England -7, you put yourself in a very good position. So I don't think this is one of those, oh, the sharp money's all over New England. They don't like the Denver Broncos. I'll tell you one thing. I am not standing in front of this Broncos team. New England's coming in a great form. Won 5 straight. Brady, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. But Denver, 7 in a row. I mean, this is 2 good teams colliding. And I think when that's the case, you got to look to the points or leave the game alone. I don't think everybody, what's going to happen when Denver falls behind 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. Who's to say New England has what it takes to go up 2 or 3 touchdowns against this defense? I agree with you. I think the value's on the dog.
And even if they do get up, you've got the backdoor ability against a piss-poor defense in the New England Patriots as far as the secondary is concerned, even against the run. I mean, last week they got gashed by the Redskins on the ground, not just to mention what Rex Grossman was able to do through the air. So here's what you got. Here's the scenario, and how many times, and people have to ask themselves this before they pluck down their money on the New England Patriots. You're going on the road. You're laying roughly 6.5 to 7 points at this point, and you're facing a team that's 8-5. They are at home. Your team that you're backing, laying all this chalk, has receivers in their secondary because they're so banged up in the secondary. They're not stopping teams. They're dead last in total defense. They're dead last in passing defense. And while they are middle of the road against the run, they did just get wiped out on the ground by a Washington Redskins team. Do you still want to lay a touchdown with that football team against a team with this kind of confidence? I did throw the one caveat out there when I was putting my notes together. We're going to find out a huge deal about Denver this week.
I agree.
Because they did play. We should mention Chicago without Cutler. They had, of course, Haney, and they didn't have Forte. They had Marion Barber, who made a lot of mistakes. They played the Vikings when the secondary was just an absolute mess and banged up, and a middle-of-the-road Viking offense. They played the Chargers, who had just lost 5 in a row. They were in a bad situation. Rivers had the injuries to his top guys at wide receiver, was throwing picks left and right. The Jets were 25th, or are 25th on offense, so they faced them. Chiefs are 28th, and they faced the Oakland Raiders when Carson Palmer was making his first start.
Yeah, you just got
to throw that in there.
No, I agree.
But at the same time, this team, as you had said earlier, you can't pick who you're going to play. You just have to go out and win those games, and that's what they've done. And their confidence level is so high right now that this is a team that's better than even their record indicates because of their belief.
Brother, I agree, and I'll tell you what. I made my true line. I'll be honest with you. I made New England 3 playing in Denver, making them, 6 on a neutral field. Mm-hmm. I give Denver 3 for playing in in that altitude. And with the bias, which give 1.5 for New England, I'm not surprised the line was 4.5. But now it's reached a point where it just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, exactly.
7's just too much. It may look like a sucker bet, but I'll take the bait. I mean, I bet them all these weeks. I passed last week, but I'm back on that Denver train this week.
Listen, I feel like I got a reprieve by going against them last week and managing to push for most people.
Exactly.
And so I'm not going to try to push my luck 2 weeks in a row with this football team or going against them. There is one angle for those guys who like the angles that's 35-11 against the spread. It's a league-wide angle, and I hardly ever talk about angles, but it deals with the Denver Broncos in this spot, being at home, being a team that averages 18 to 23 points per game against a team that's averaging over 27 points per game. Those teams are 35-11 against the spread, and they get even better as far as breaking down the spread as the season progresses. But the bottom line is, for me, again, just like last week we had the Redskins when we talked about the Redskins and Pats, I just think New England's just overrated because of faulty public perception.
I agree. That's our play. Tebow Express. This is a big game. I wish it was a primetime game, but they did well. At least it's a later afternoon game. Expected to be the most heavily bet regular season game the whole season. We're like the Broncos. Wait and get 7 before kickoff. That's our pick in this game.